Did you know in 2021 that 30% of all houses were purchased with all cash offers? And yet, guess what's happening in the housing crash? You have the opposite happening. You've got homes in default. You've got people losing on their mortgages. They're behind on payments. They're giving them back. And so today we can play real estate in a very different way. We're talking about buying real estate literally creatively with no money out of pocket whatsoever. And there's one man that is expert in the world at how to do this, and it's none other than Bob Allen. Hey, how are you doing, buddy?
Awesome, awesome.
Hey,
good to you.
This economy has shifted and changed, right?
Oh, absolutely.
No money down strategies. Are they working better now than ever before?
We've been waiting 10 years for this moment. And now is the no money time, no money down time, right now.
So today we're gonna give you the top 3 strategies on how to negotiate no money down deals.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! I'm turning dreams into reality. Yeah, it's one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
Check it out. I've bought thousands of homes without ever using any of my own money, and I gotta credit it to the one and only Robert G. Allen. What is up, my friend? Great to have you here today.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Brother, this is interesting. Like today we're talking about 3 creative ways to literally buy real estate without any money whatsoever. And there's gotta be skeptics out there that are like, dude, you can't do that. But you don't have 3 techniques, you have how many?
Oh, 50 techniques.
50 different ways of doing
this,
this,
just
right?
talk about 3 today.
Yeah, so the whole game of creative real estate is this notion where people own real estate, they have problems to solve, and you basically get creative and find ways for that to happen.
Exactly. The word creative is not used recently because people just had a lot of cash and they could go buy with cash, and therefore we didn't need to be creative. But now when times get a little strange, the sellers who are trying to sell can't sell, and therefore they will be willing to accept a creative way to solve their financial problems. That's where nothing down comes into play. And nothing down, which is creative financing. How do you buy property with little or no money down? Because of creative financing is the solution for that. So
let's get into it right now. Check it out. If you want to learn these 3 strategies, we have to get a little bit of jargon out of the way. We got to start with motivated seller. The best deals in real estate are found when the seller is a don't wanter. Don't wanters will be willing to offload their properties with more flexible terms if you can solve their problems. Bob, what is a don't wanter?
about 5% of the people in any marketplace at any time in any city are highly motivated to sell. That means they're don't wanters. They don't want their real estate. Maybe they inherited it. Maybe they got a bad tenant. Maybe their payments are too high, so they just got to get rid of it.
I got to tell you, there's a lot of people that have got to have bought some real estate. We're like, it went up in value, and then interest rates went up, and I still closed on it, and I'm like, these payments are killing me.
And so you don't want to buy properties like that. You don't want to be a don't wanter, but you want to find a highly motivated seller where the deal is great for you. So people have given up on the real estate marketplace, but we haven't. We think this is the best time of all to buy real estate because this is when we find highly motivated sellers.
Bob, you actually wait for markets like this?
Yeah, it's been 10 years.
Yeah, because for the last 10 years, it's like the market keeps going up and people have cash. There's all this money that's circulating in the marketplace.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden, especially the last couple of years with all these all cash offers, right?
Exactly.
I mean, competing has been crazy, but the moment the market turns, Bob comes out. Eliminating whether the seller is dealing with a divorce, retirement, or a lack of time, each will have their own unique needs to be met. Today, we will discuss 3 of many ways to sweeten a deal. Where does this term eliminating really come from?
Well, you know, you take a lemon and you add some sugar to it. So there's a lot of ways where you can solve a seller's problem without coming up with a lot of your own cash. So you solve it, you make the problem go away by sweetening the deal, frankly.
So really, this is about solving problems because people have problems, and if they don't solve the problem, they're going to lose their house, they're going to give it back, they're going to literally ruin their credit, and you know that creates a lot of bad feelings. But if you can swoop in and create a win-win scenario where you solve their problem, sweeten the deal, and it also works for you, everyone wins.
Everybody wins. As a matter of fact, you know, Kris was laughing about, you know, the shark there just a few minutes ago, but frankly, I'm not a shark. I want to solve their problem. And if I can't solve their problem, then I'll show them how they could solve their problem with somebody else. I have to solve my problem. I gotta have a good deal or not, or I will not buy.
So he has angel wings.
Yeah, that's better.
That's what this is.
That's better. That's better. So you are literally trying to solve the seller's problem without the use of cash, without your cash being involved. And so that's what I mean by lemonading. You find a solution that solves your problem and their problem at the same time. And that means it's nice to meet face to face with these sellers so they can trust you. And most realtors don't like that. They don't want you to meet with the seller. Therefore, I like to buy off-market properties where I can talk to the seller directly. And they get a hit off me and they realize, you know what? The guy's trying to help me. Okay, I'll accept some of his creative solutions to my problem.
When you take a shark and an angel and they make a baby, you get an eagle. All right, let's get started with the first way of doing a no money down creative form of real estate, and it's called assuming the seller's obligations. A common reason people become don't wanters is because they need the money to pay for their debts. Instead of getting a loan from the bank, you can offer to assume their obligations and make monthly payments on their behalf, whether it's for a medical bill, student loans, or the house itself. Bob, is this a technique that you've used?
Oh, absolutely. When you find somebody who has a lot of debt, one of the reasons they want to sell is because they're going to take your cash, pay off all of their debts, therefore they're without debt and they feel good about that. Well, if you don't have a lot of money, for example, you find out that the seller has a dentist bill that's $5,000 from dental work they've done a while ago, and rather than you coming up with $5,000 to give them so they can pay their dentist bill, why don't you just assume the dentist bill? And therefore you make their monthly payments, and therefore you don't have to pull $5,000 out of your pocket. That's just one small example. When you find out a seller has lots of different obligations, you try to figure out a way for you to pay them rather than you coming up with money out of your pocket. And that's why we assume their obligations if possible.
All right, so check it out. We're talking about 3 different techniques. Let's do an example. Let's do an example from things you've seen in the real world, because the first thing that we're talking about is assuming the seller's obligations. Let's write out a deal here showing an example of a house.
Well, these 3 techniques we're going to share with you are part of 50 nothing down techniques. And you use these techniques to help you solve your down payment problem. So let's assume that you don't have a down payment, but you find a highly motivated seller. Let's say they have a $300,000 property and it's worth $300,000. They have a $200,000 loan against it, and they're having troubles making that mortgage payment.
And so I want to be clear, this is the debt.
That's the debt.
This is the equity.
That's the equity.
And so basically they owe 300, well, they owe 200 on a house that is worth 300,000.
Exactly.
Can I just add a roof here?
Yeah.
That just makes me real happy. A little chimney and a little bit of Bob Ross and a happy tree. So let's talk about this person's problems. You used an example earlier of someone that has like a dental bill that's unpaid. So let's just say that they have a $5,000 dental bill. How does that get worked into a deal like this?
Well, remember, this $100,000 is what you're trying to solve. That's a down payment. The first thing you want to make sure...
And when you say down payment, this house exists, this person's problems are real, we want the house.
Yeah, we want it.
And
this is their equity, $100,000. But because they're highly motivated to sell, maybe they don't want the property, maybe we want them to accept a discount. Now, last year, they wouldn't have taken a discount. They wanted all cash, they wanted $100,000.
But the market has shifted.
Exactly, it's shifted. So now they're willing to accept a discount. So let's assume we can get them to take $250,000 instead of $300,000. Now we have a $50,000 problem. That's their equity, and we got to solve that.
So you're basically saying of $100,000 of equity, if we can solve enough of their problems, we get to keep $50,000 of equity in the house.
Exactly.
And we're trying to help them get their other quote unquote $50,000 to solve their other financial issues.
Exactly.
And part of their $50,000 then includes a $5,000 medical bill, but we'll say a dentist bill.
Yeah, let's say it's a dentist bill for $5,000, and they owe the $5,000 to the dentist. We say, let's us assume that. So it's off of your shoulders. You don't have to worry about those monthly payments anymore. We'll worry about those monthly payments, and therefore the $50,000 in the equity is going to be reduced. Our problem is going to be reduced down to $45,000, but we're not done yet.
All right, so check it out. Here's what's happening so far. We're learning 3 different strategies, and the first one is is assuming other people's obligations. So here it is. We want their house. They're a don't wanter because of their problems. Their house is worth $300,000. They owe $200,000, and they're willing to sell it for $250,000 if we can solve enough of their problems, which means we got to get them $50,000. And the first thing we said was, what if we're willing to pay your dental bill? Well, then they'd say, great, we can already, that's of the $50,000 that we're trying to get, and you getting the other 50, we've just reduced it by $5,000 because you're assuming our dental problems. And this is the first of 3 techniques.
But remember, this doesn't work with every seller in the real estate marketplace. Most sellers will go to a realtor, and the realtor convince them to raise the price and that they're going to find a strong buyer, and lots of qualifications and high down payments and things like that. These highly motivated sellers, they're rare. They're 1 in 20. And therefore, 19 times out of 20, these deals will not work. These techniques will not work. That's why we don't talk to the 19. We only talk to the 1. And that one person is more flexible because they are forced to be flexible. So we found one way to assume their obligations. Now let's solve the rest of our down payment problem in a way that solves all of their problems too.
All right, the second technique that we're going to be learning from Bob when it comes to creative real estate that we're going to add on this deal is what's called the creation of paper. You can collateralize the equity you have in almost any asset with a note and a mortgage that you create. Explain that.
What?
Yeah.
You can create a mortgage out of thin air?
Wait, a bank doesn't have to do it?
You don't have to go to a mortgage broker and all this stuff? No. What is a mortgage? It's a note and a collateral agreement. That means I owe you X amount of dollars at such an interest rate with monthly payments, etc. And collateral means what will you use to secure that note? So let me give an example. Suppose you have a building lot that you own that's worth, let's say, $75,000, and it's free and clear because you're going to build your dream home on it, and you don't want to sell it. But it would be nice if I could use it for a period of time to help solve my current problems so I could own a dream home one of these days.
So you're saying this is an asset, a thing that you own. By the way, it could also be a paid off vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. A motor home.
It's a thing that you own. It's an asset.
Yeah.
And so in this case, it's just a free and clear lot.
Yeah.
And we're going to somehow use this as collateral to actually get in on this deal.
We're going to say to the seller, Mr. Seller, or Mrs. Seller, I tell you what, I'm gonna make monthly payments to you on $25,000 of this $50,000 that we've negotiated, and guess what? We'll put a $25,000 first mortgage on this lot across town. You can see it. You can drive and look at it. You'll own the first mortgage with monthly payments of, let's say it's 8% interest with payments over the next 10 years. And therefore, the seller likes the fact that it's not this home. They like the fact that it's something else that's free and clear, and therefore you'll be willing to make them monthly payments. And therefore, rather than having a $45,000 problem, you've created a note for $25,000. Therefore, what's left is $20,000 of that $50,000 down payment you're trying to solve.
So again, we're talking about a deal here where someone is a don't wanter on a house that's worth $300,000, they owe $200,000, and because they're in such dire straits, they just want 50 grand, and we're saying we want the house. And they're like, well, I'm kind of giving you a $50,000 discount on the house, but if you can give me $50,000 to solve my problems, this will work. And so the first thing we did is we said, well, we're going to assume the obligation of their $5,000 dental bill. Then you said, I've got this other asset owned free and clear worth $75,000, and I'm going to create a first mortgage on it, and I'm going to make you payments at 8% on this $25,000. And now what we've done is we've assumed one of their problems, and we've also given them a monthly payment on one of your assets.
Exactly.
And now there's only $20,000 left to come up with.
Exactly. So what a nothing down investor does is solve problems in all kinds of little ways. So assuming their mortgage or assuming their obligations is one way, giving them a created note on something else you own is another way. The third way is to say to the seller, why don't you stay into this property? You've got obligations and financial problems, but if you stay into the property, I can handle your obligations. Therefore, you can eventually earn more profit down the road if you stay in.
And you're not necessarily meaning that they actually stay in the house.
No.
What you're saying is we're still going to get it, but why don't we leave you a slice of equity in the house?
Exactly.
So that as we manage it properly, there's future gains that you can get on the upside.
So the seller becomes your partner. And your seller says, hey, this is fine. I get these assets that you're giving me to solve my financial problem now. And down the road, you seem to be like a real smart investor. Maybe I'd be happy to get, the seller is saying to you, maybe 50% ownership when you fix it up and sell it down the road. Hey, you see, the reason they might accept that is because they don't want this property. They want to get rid of it. It's an obligation on their shoulders. However, if you solve those obligations, then that 50% equity becomes it's like icing on the cake. And they go, hey, I think I might be willing to accept that.
Ask the seller to leave money in the deal. On every sale, you should always ask if the seller would like to leave some money in the property. A retiring couple, for example, may be downsizing and may not need the money immediately. Instead, they may be better off if you offer them interest on their money to leave it in the property.
So leaving money in the property can be a monthly payment to them. They may end up with an ownership in the property where there is no monthly payment to them, but they get money down the road. So remember, what we were trying to solve was a $50,000 problem. First, we assumed an obligation for them. Second, we gave them a note and a mortgage on another property we owned. Thirdly, we said, why don't you just stay in and be one of the owners of this property, and therefore you get more money down the road. It might be more than your $20,000 that you're leaving in now. Maybe if we increase the value substantially down the road, that $20,000 could turn into $40,000.
So Bob, because I've been a student of yours for so long, I've actually used all three of these techniques, and it's really cool to see. In one case, it's like, let me solve that problem for you. In another case, it's, why don't I give you a piece of one of my assets?
Yes.
And in another one, it's, why don't you actually keep some of the upside in what I'm going to do with this project down the road? And now all of a sudden, you're providing options that the market can't, that a bank can't, but you can.
That's right.
By the way, did today expand your mind? Because Bob, when I spend time with you, what it does is it expands my thinking on, wow, you're literally just like borrowing a little here, mixing some things over here, swapping some resources, and all of a sudden you get a yes when you wouldn't have gotten one otherwise. It's almost a little bit like playing Monopoly, right? It's like, I'm gonna trade you a little money and some of this property, and by the way, if you land on my hotel next time, you don't even have to pay me. And now all of a sudden, like, I started implementing what I learned from you in Monopoly and started winning that game through your creative techniques. And I wanna tell you that one of my other favorite creative techniques comes from a book that I wrote, The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth. I wrote this after leveraging a lot of Bob's techniques. And in it, I talk about a creative strategy to, basically it's like a version of rent to own. It's a lease option, lease with an option to purchase. And I've used this strategy to actually buy real estate, no money out of pocket, and usually to solve other people's problems.
Yes.
And so this is a book that I'm actually making as a gift from me to you if you click the link below. And I think you're gonna find two gifts there. The first one is pick up a copy of this book because it's free. Literally cover the shipping on it. The book will get sent out to you, and let me teach you my favorite no money down strategy. But with that, you also are gonna see a link to following Bob on social, and I'm just gonna tell you right now, you need, like if you like these three techniques, you're gonna love the next 47. So please follow Bob, get a copy of the book, and let's show you the most creative versions of getting in the game of real estate with no money down.
So don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait. So when should you buy a house? Now.
And there should never be an excuse, right? I
No.
mean, like, you don't need money. You follow Bob, you read the book, you learn the techniques, and if you're really wondering when is really the time for you to get in the game, start buying real estate, the answer is always gonna be now. And if you wanna know your best strategies and techniques on doing that, click this video and let's show you how to do it.